unstrained employee. You know, we people in working families work too often to make month than money. We need help with targeted policies and programs. You can ask any Alice what we need, and we'll tell you. In the meantime, Alice.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, it's Thursday. It's a lot to 9 o'clock. You heard the theme music, so you know what time it is. Time for the workplace. Here exclusively on KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people and community radio. I hope everybody's having a great Thursday morning so far. I know it's the day after Christmas. I hope you had a wonderful holiday and spend it with your family. And whatever you did, I hope you had a great time. I'm your host, Toney Orr, and as always, in studio is the lovely, vivacious, fierce Reverend Dr.
Grand
Denise
Rising, good humans, Grand Rising. Woo,
woo, woo. Oh, wow. So, man, I just thought about, I was thinking about this this week. This is the last workplace show for the year, for 2024. And so, it's amazing. It seemed like it was just yesterday where we started the first show of the year in 2024. So looking forward to closing out the year with a great show. You want to take the time to greet the audience? I know you said hello. Do you want to greet them anymore, or do you have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements.
Okay, I just have one. So attention, our best customers, protect your debit card like never before with our best fraud alerts. Here's how it works. If suspicious activity is detected, our best sends you a text alert. Reply yes to confirm the transaction or no if it's fraudulent. It's fast, easy, and keeps your card safe. Learn more about this powerful protection at rvest.com/fraud-alerts. That's rvest.com/fraud-alerts. RVest fraud alerts, keeping you one step ahead of fraud. And I've said this before, it's a great tool to have. I enjoy it, especially because I do a lot of traveling, not just internationally, but across the states, this country. And it's always good when I get that alert asking me, and sometimes I get a phone call that, hey, we suspect some fraudulent activity on your card. Were you in Atlanta, Georgia? I'm like, yeah, that's me. So it's a good thing to have. If you don't have it, just think about doing it. Just want to give a big shout out to Arkansas community organizations and Starbucks Workers United. If you haven't heard, for the past couple of days, Starbucks workers with over 300 stores, over 300 stores across the country went on strike. This year, Starbucks agreed to negotiate contracts with employees of Starbucks. And those contracts are still in negotiation. So Starbucks is dragging their feet on them. And so there were several stores in the Central Arkansas area that went on strike in support of all other stores across the country. And Arkansas community organizations were out at the Bryant store on the picket lines with those Starbucks employees. So there's a movement going on where workers are demanding. They are not playing. They are demanding to be at the table. They are demanding better wages. They're demanding so many things. And so it's good to see that works are starting to rise up in so many different ways. So once again, shout out to Neil Seeley and Arkansas community organizations for being out there on the picket lines with their Starbucks employees. So, as I said, this is the last show of the year for the workplace. And I thought about, as I was thinking about what the topic or what we talk about today, one of the things that I have done over the years in doing this show is at the last show of the year, I was asked, to reflect back on the year, to just get input from you, the listening audience, about some of the things that happened this year, some of the things that, to remember. And this year, I want to ask the question, what was the one thing, or it may not be just one thing, it may be a couple of things. What are the things that happened this year that you feel will impact next year, going to 2025? What are the things that happened in 2024 that you believe will be a major impact, whether it's societal, whether it's in your life, or whatever, that you feel that this time next year, as we come to the end of 2025, you can say, you can say that, yes, I said that at the end of 2024, that this was going to impact me, society, or whatever. And now I see that it did. So what are your things? What are some things that you feel? To me, there's two things. There's two things that I feel that's going to impact 2025 in a very significant way. One, and it goes back to Tuesday, we were talking about the documentary by Questlove called Summer Soul, the Harlem Cultural Festival. And we were talking about it on Tuesday. I had already seen it, but when we started talking about it on Tuesday, I went home and I watched it again, and you see something the second time, you see something the first time, but then you see it again and you see what you missed. I watched it, but I missed some things. And the one thing I missed, and this was so important to me, which helped frame this my two things, or my things that I think is going to impact this upcoming year, was when they were interviewing some of the attendees. It just so happened that on one of the weekends of the Harlem Cultural Festival was the moon landing on one of those weekends, because it was 6 weekends, consecutive weekends, where they had these artists and they had these different events going on. And on one weekend, they had the moon landing. And so they were asking people, and these are your Black people, they were asking them, how important was the moon landing? And answers vary, but they all connected, basically were saying the same thing. He said, moon, they asked this one person, he said, the moon landing ain't important to me. So you come out the moon, forget the moon. What about resources in our neighborhood? What about money for housing? What about money for different things? And it made, and somebody else said, they were talking about healthcare. So we need healthcare. This money you're spending on in the moon, that's just I think one person said, that's just money wasted. Money wasted. So when I think about that, I think about, number one, the recent shooting of the CEO for United Healthcare. Because the same issue that was happening in 1969 is still happening here. People don't have adequate healthcare. The healthcare is too expensive. And now I believe that because of this issue, because and don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating that anybody go out and kill anybody. But when you get fed up, you get fed up. And so I believe it's going to impact, because now either you're going to address the issue of healthcare, or I think more people are going to take matters into their own hands and do things. The other thing is this wasteful use of taxpayers' money for things that really do not impact everyday citizens. They talk about all this money being given to SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company. All this money being spent on defense. All this money being spent in areas that really, really, the everyday person does not see the benefit of it. And so I think that people going back, even with the Starbucks workers going on strike, people are going to start rising up in a way, to me, that's going to be impactful, that's going to impact this country or this world in 2025.
So Hotep answered your question right here. He said, your question is, what are some things or one thing that is going to impact you next year that happened this year? And he said, convicted felon Donald Trump elected as president.
Yeah, and I thought about it. I think that's people, a lot of people are probably going to say, yeah, Trump being elected. But but I think that, and we've had these conversations. I've had these conversations with you, Denise, and I've had this conversation with other people. I don't think him being elected president is going to change some things that will. I don't think it's going to stop some things that are continuing to happen. And going back to inadequate healthcare, going back to inadequate education, public education, inadequate housing. I think those things are going to have to be moved by people starting to rise up and say, you know what, we need to do something different. And like I said, it's kind of like Gil Scott-Heron's song, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. The Revolution will be live." And I think going back to the CEO, going back to these workers picketing, these are live things that are happening. These are live events that are going on. These are events that you can see, you can feel. And I think that's going to have an impact, to me, a lot more than Donald Trump just being president.
Well, that's what he was talking about for him. He wasn't, okay, anyway. So let me answer the question for me. So one of the things that I say that had an impact on me that's going to be felt next year is what happened recently, just like within the last couple of weeks, but especially the last few days, most people that are in conversation with me, and if the topic of holidays come up, I have been very vocal about the fact that I do not celebrate holidays, period. And whatever holiday it is, doesn't matter. But because the holiday right now is Christmas, I don't celebrate Christmas. And I have said that more than once. I'm not ashamed of that. I don't have a problem with that. So many people, when I say so many, more than 5 people. So yes, so when I say so many, more than 5 people at least that know how I feel about Christmas have said something to the effect of, said something like this to me. I know you don't celebrate Christmas, but, and then they either give me a gift or they give me a card or they will extend an invitation for me to come over to their house or for them to come over to my house. Like whatever it is, they want me to participate in some form around the holiday that they celebrate. Now, they know I don't celebrate it because they said, I know you don't, but, and I think that, I know that some people don't really think about the power of language. And so that word but is a conjunction that combines 2 sentences. That's its job, to combine 2 sentences. But what it does, the word but says, okay, whatever was said before this word, I'm going to negate it and replace it with what comes after. So when I say when the person says, I know you don't celebrate Christmas, but what comes after that, it nullifies what they said, what they said at first, which is, I know you don't. So you're like, okay, it doesn't matter to me that you don't celebrate. It doesn't matter to me how you feel about Christmas. It doesn't matter to me what you think about holidays. This is what I want to do because this is how I feel and this is what I celebrate. And so that's going to have an impact on me, because what I want to spend some time doing next year is to really continue to hone in on the reality of Salbona, the reality of what it means to say that I'm living in a world where I want to honor your humanity the same way I want my humanity to be honored, but I want to embrace the whole of who you are. So if you say to me, these are your convictions, if you say to me, these are your beliefs, then I'm not going to step on that because of my beliefs. And I'm not going to push my beliefs on you. And so wanting to spend some time trying to figure out how we can continue to dig deeper about what it means to say the whole of who you are is important to me, regardless of how I feel.
Yeah. And yeah, I think part of what has happened in 2024 is that we have seen so many standards and traditions, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whatever they are, start to become conflictual to so many people, and it's starting to push people in a whole new direction. And when I think about Hamas and Israel, and Israel takes a stance that if you're against me, if you don't agree with me, then you're anti-Semitic. And not understanding that it's not that I'm anti-Semitic, I just don't agree with the things that you're doing. Going back to what I was talking about earlier with the CEO, there are people who are celebrating, they don't want to see the person persecuted. They don't want to see the person persecuted because a lot of people have stories about how the healthcare system has failed them. And so, I guess it's kind of like a song that I'm looking for a hero. So many people are looking for a hero to do some things or to change some things. But I think going forward in 2025, a lot of people are saying, I can be that hero. I can be that person. And like I said, I'm not advocating that you go out and you shoot somebody on the street. But I am advocating that at some point you have to stop and say, hey, this needs to change. This needs to be different. And I think that's going to be the theme going forward in 2025, is that so many people are going to stand up and say, this needs to be different. And I'm going to do my due diligence to make these things different. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to change. And I think that change is going to happen. It may not happen in a way that we think it may happen, but just looking at 2024, there were a lot of changes. And I think those changes will continue. And I think those changes will have a great impact on everybody as it goes forward.
So Lo responds to you and says that those are not Semite people living in the so-called land of Israel. Those are not Semite people living in the so-called land of Israel. But what I think is that another thing that has an impact on me, going back to what I said about people saying, I know you don't believe in Christmas, but only one of those people who said that to me and celebrated Christmas for me in their own way, only one of them mentioned my mama. Only one of them. And so it made me think, okay, so if Christmas is supposed to be this time where you are spreading love, where you are enjoying family, where you are centering the Christmas story, the birth of Christ who comes to save the world so that we can know what it means to experience a love that is beyond anything that we could ever have known before, that is transcendental, like this kind of love that binds us together, this agape love that says, no matter who you are, no matter what you are, I love you. If we're celebrating this love that includes your family, you know a person has lost someone that meant the world to them. In the spirit of Christmas, for you not to mention her, it makes me question, then what really are you celebrating? And so when you say that we have to affect change for next year, I feel like the only way that we can do that is if we are willing to get to the point that we just stop for a moment and ask ourselves, who are you really? And what do you really believe? And how do you really embody what you believe? And how do other people experience the embodiment of what you believe? And I think that that is the most important part. Asking, engaging other people in how they experience you. Because I think some people think they're doing stuff. Some people think that they are being received. Some people think that they are having this impact that they really aren't having. And they're not going to know it unless somebody else tells them. And sometimes, most times, people are not going to tell you unless they get the invitation. So being willing and open to hear how other people perceive you, I think that's going to be a great step forward in affecting change.
Of course. Yeah. And so going back to the documentary about the Harlem Cultural Festival and some of the comments that were said. And I mentioned that those same things that they will talk about, they were looking at, in this festival, they were looking at, this is Black people. It's just Black people. But now you come to 2024, what people were looking at in 69 is that this was just affecting Black people. Now, there are a lot of people of different ethnic groups, different socioeconomic backgrounds. They're seeing the same thing. And so now I think you're right that you have to take the time to ask the questions. You have to take the time to find out about other people, about what they believe in. But I think that some of that is starting to come together in certain ways. When you see where it used to be this separation of a lot of different employees in a workplace, they're now coming and say, you know what, we may be of different backgrounds, but I can understand what you're going through. You can understand what I'm going through, and we can start having a conversation. Is how do we understand each other in a way that helps move us to achieve a goal of what we need, and that's what's so unique about what's going on with the Starbucks workers. That's what's so unique in what's happening, because people are now starting to understand this healthcare is not just poor people who are suffering. it's just not, it's just not Black people who are suffering. It's so many of us who are suffering. But let me hear the story of these people, or these different people, so that we can move together. Because if I can understand you and you can understand me, and like you said, we can see humanity in each other, then we can push to make this change happen.
I think that that is true when you're talking about workplace environment. I think that that is true when you're talking about access to healthcare. These are things that many people across many populations experience in a similar way. The story plays out differently, but the experience is similar. And so they can find common ground with it. I don't think the same holds true, though, when you get to the topic of racism. And so I think that, yes, you don't mind talking to me about workplace conditions as a Black person. You don't mind talking about that at Starbucks. You don't mind talking about access to healthcare with a Black person, because now we're bound together in the poor services that we are receiving. But when I want to talk about the way the world treats me because I'm Black, then you don't want to talk about that. When I need somebody to advocate for me as a Black person, you don't find that. When I need somebody to go to the bat and say, all I want to talk about are policies that are related to Black folks as a non-Black person. That I don't see happening, and I don't foresee it happening even in 2025. Let me get this comment in from Lo. Lo says, belief: the Bible tells an individual what time of year that Jesus was born, yet the truth is being swept under the rug and people are believing the lie. I'll say it again. Belief, question mark. The Bible tells an individual what time of year that Jesus was born, yet the truth is being swept under the rug and people are believing the lie.
Yeah, and I think that can be said about so many other things.
I do too.
Yeah, that can be said about so many other things, that the truth is being swept, under the rug. The truth is not being revealed. I was watching this documentary last night on MSNBC, and it was about To Destroy. That was the documentary. Yeah, To Destroy. It was talking about Grand Rapids, South Dakota, as they were in this battle with this, the school district. The school board was in a battle with a group of parents who wanted to ban books, And so when the question was asked, why do you want to ban this book? Is it because there's the book, and they talk about indoctrination, they say, is the book really indoctrinating children, or is it that you just don't want to talk about it because you don't like the book? And so I think that's one of the things that people won't address openly, or when you might say openly, but when you start having these conversations and getting to the root of why, there are so many things that people have a certain agenda about, or they have a certain feel about, or they have a certain emotion about, but does it affect anybody else but you? Because you don't like it, because you see it differently, that does not mean that other people see it the same way. And so when you start to bring up these lies and you start to sweep these lies away, then it becomes this idea that, well, this is the truth because I want it to be true. And so when I'm looking at some of the things that have happened in 2024, when I'm starting to look at 2025, there are some things that are coming together. There are some people who are having certain conversations. There are some people who are openly pushing for the conversation and the dialogue about, hey, why are we taking humanity out of society instead of bringing humanity into where we can look at it? Does not matter about your sex. It does not matter about your orientation. It does not matter about your color. It does not matter about your education. What matters is that we as humans need to move forward. And just me, just my belief, that I've seen I'm looking at some things that it may seem insignificant, but I believe it is significant because I see some people coming together for that, to push that agenda.
I want to make sure people are aware of this, that the Arkansas book banning law has been declared unconstitutional. So the United States District Court for the Western District of Arkansas declared Arkansas Act 372 unconstitutional in an opinion indicating that the law is overbroad and void for vagueness and permanently enjoined its enforcement. So I want to make sure that people know that in Arkansas and in Florida, the book banning law has been declared unconstitutional. So here's low. To remain ignorant is to stay a child, and that is the gist of censorship and the banning of books. To remain ignorant is to stay a child, and that is the gist of censorship and the banning of books. So to me, I think this is coupled with what he said about the lie. Like, we want to continue to perpetuate the lie, because as long as I get you to believe the lie, I can control you. But when you begin to learn the truth, then I can't control you in the same way, because that knowledge gives you power to move in a different way. And the power that you gain moves you away from these systems of domination and exclusion and oppression and war, and moves you toward a more equitable society. And so, yes, I need you to keep believing what I want you to believe, because then you are no longer powerful.
Yeah, and so one of the things, another thing that happened that really, I think is going to be impactful in the coming year is this idea when it comes to education and what people perceive education to be. This voucher system that we have here in Arkansas that is giving money to students to go, to families to send their children to private schools. In the beginning, when this first started, there was this overwhelming pushback against it from a lot of different educators. And now that pushback has become even bigger, because now they see this is not helping, so many students that it promised to be helped. Going back to, there was a lie told that, hey, this is going to help you in your family. It's going to help your children. But, and the lie was believed until, it became evident that no, it's not going to help. So I believe one of the things that may happen this year, and I'm very hopeful that it will, because the Learns Act is still tied up in court on some different sections of it. And I think I was reading the paper the other day that the courts had, I want to say they didn't do a temporary injunction. They did. They put a hold on it, in how I think, and make a decision on it. Judge put a hold on it to make a decision. But I think more people are starting to push back on it and say, hey, this isn't going to be good for a lot of the students here in the state of Arkansas. And I think because, and I believe a lot of it is because people are starting to uncover the lie. When you start to pull back the layers of the lie and recognize the lie for what it is, and most of the time you can't recognize the lie until you see the impact of the lie on you. And once you see it on you, then you realize that, oh, it wasn't what they said it was going to be. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. This is more harmful to me than it is going to help me. And then that's when you come together with others who have that same idea, they have that same harm. And so I'm thinking and I'm hopeful that in 2025, the Learns Act, if you scale back or you get rid of certain parts of it, basically you have to get rid of the whole thing. It weakens the whole process of it.
I think that for some people, it's not possible for them to see the lie even in affecting their own lives. And I think part of that reason is because of the way the world has conditioned us around this idea of work on more than one level. So work on the level of I gotta be at a job. I have to be on a job. Some people are working 2 and 3 jobs, and then they have families, and then they have children, and then they have extracurriculars. And so they are constantly busy, constantly moving, constantly shaking, constantly grinding, constantly hustling. And so it's not possible for them to recognize how the lie is impacting them because they don't have the time to center themselves and really think about what's going on. Other people who don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs, they still feel like they have to do so many things. I got to be a part of this ministry. I got to be a part of this club. I got to be a part of this organization. I got to be a part of this board. I got to be on this. I got to be a trustee over here. So all of these things that keep you moving, keep you from taking time to be still and think and then come into the knowledge of what is really happening, unless we are willing in 2025 to rethink what work means for us, those of us who can, because some people, because of the world, they're not able to, right? But for those of us who can, until you stop moving so much, you're not going to see what's happening to your own life.
Yeah, that's possible. But I also believe that when you start to see, no matter how much you got going on, no matter what is happening in your life, when the effects of something start to become so detrimental to you, then you're like, hold up. This needs to change. This needs to change. And that's where humanity comes in. That's where others, the idea of humanity comes in and say, hey, you know what? I know you have all this going on. I know you have this to do. I know you have all these jobs. What I'm going to do, I'm going to step in as a gap for you. I know this is detrimental to you. So because I don't have this to do, I'm going to step in and I'm going to step in your place to help you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to do this for you. Going back to these Starbucks workers that are on strike, and I never forget. I had one of the employees here on the show this year, and the person said, "I know there are some employees who can't take off. I know they can't, be on the picket lines. I know they can't be in contract negotiations, but I can." And because I can, I'm going to fight for them. And I think that's what one of the things I've been talking about when I said that I think 2025 is going to see this movement, because I believe that based on some things that have happened in 2024, there are going to be more people who are going to stand up and say, you know what, let me fight even more. We've been fighting, we've been moving, we've been trying to get some things done, but let me do more. Let me take more ownership of being human. Let me take more ownership of helping those who need the help, but they can't stop doing what they're doing to help participate in the help that participate in the movement that helps them. So I'm going to step in because I do have that time to do that.
I think Lo is reading my mind right here when he says, then why do he says the majority white, but I'm going to include Black folks in this too. Why do they keep electing these knuckleheads who do not pursue the betterment of humanity? If people can see, this is me talking now, if people can see the impact of what's happening on their lives, then how we end up voting in Donald Trump again? So for people to make this same mistake again, and now we say, oh no, it's gonna be different next year. People gonna see it differently next year. What about next year is gonna make them see it differently when they have 4 years to think about it before making the same mistake again?
And I think part of that is that going back to this election, and here's the thing, and I can't stand this phrase that so many people use, is that I'd rather dance with the devil I know than the one that I don't know. And then sit out. There were so many people who sat out. There were so many people who did do the thing. And that's fine. But there were people who did. There were people who said, you know what, I'm going to push. I'm going to push. Now, whether they won or not, the step was taken. The step was taken that, hey, I'm going to help. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I know we concentrate on Donald Trump getting reelected, but there was a movement out of this world, a movement that hadn't been seen in years. And I don't think that movement died when Donald Trump was elected. I think it only galvanized people more. I think it opened the door for people to see the commonality and what can be more than more than they looked at it as a defeat.
So there was a movement when Obama was elected. People had to do something differently to get Joe Biden elected instead of Donald Trump right behind each other, right? Instead of Donald Trump having 2 terms consecutively. So people have been choosing to get involved. At the same time, people have been choosing to disengage this whole time. So again, I'm back to, I guess my question is this: what specifically are you looking at that says to you, no, 2025 is going to be different from all of this other time? And you said right then, you said, well, because this is the people were galvanized. I'm like, but I can go back and say people were galvanized and during these other campaigns. So what is it that you see that's different?
Oh, what I see that's different is in the past. I think in those other times you're talking about whether it's President Obama, where you're talking about Joe Biden. With President Obama, there it was still a split. There was still a split with the Democrats.
There's a split now with the Democrats.
There still was a split in even when it came to the Affordable Care Act. There was still some splits. When it came to Joe Biden, nobody really wanted Joe Biden. They just didn't want Trump. And so now when you come forward, now when you come to this election, like I said, more people just sat out. They didn't want neither one of them again. But you had people who came across so many different cultures, so many different agendas, they want to use that word, to say, you know what, here's our opportunity to build. And let's go forward with this. Will we win? Maybe not. But we have an opportunity to build. And that's what I'm looking at. I believe. Now, it may not happen. It may not happen. It may be the same old. Who knows? But just in what I'm seeing, and it's just in what I've been seeing across not only this state, but across the country. In my travels, I've seen more people who are like, you know what? This person, I know this person can't be a voice here because they got to work or they got children or they're being dismissed or whatever. But I can be a voice for them. So I'm watching and seeing that more. And so that's what I'm looking at. That this may be the beginning of something, that will impact humanity more.
Well, I'm not sure for me that's an adequate representation of what happened with this election, because I know that people were sitting out when it was Biden versus Trump, and they were saying they didn't want either one of those, and they were totally disengaged. But once the game changed and Vice President Kamala Harris became the nominee, that's when the galvanization happened. That's when we saw something that we have not seen in years. I don't even think we've seen it ever. The amount of money that was raised so fast, the amount of energy that was just infused into the campaign, into the election process, the amount of people that were jumping on calls, the amount of people that were coming together. That's when that happened. And still this country could not say, I'll vote for a woman that they have labeled Black. And so again, I'm back to you can't take race off the table. So if we're going to affect change, if we're going to do things differently, we're going to have to confront, we're going to have to engage, we're going to have to keep it real, we're going to have to tell the truth about racism. Otherwise, I don't see how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, what I'm seeing, and like I said, and what I'm seeing, I'm starting to see people willing to have that conversation about race, even after this election. Just being on conference calls, just being involved with different organizations around the country and talking with them, you can see that, okay, we know that race plays an important part. We know that race is a foundation that in this country that has to be broken down. It's a foundation across the world that has to be broken down. And we have an opportunity to chip away at it, to find out, to talk about it, to discuss it, and now move in a way that's going to be more humane for everybody. I see that. And going back to something you said, yes, because everybody was galvanized, because of the money, because of the conversation, because people started to hear the stories of other people. And now you can see, well, let's not let this die. Let's keep moving forward with this. And I believe, like I said, I may be wrong, but I believe this was an opportunity. I believe this was a moment that people were like, you know what? We cannot allow the same old, same old. So let's try to change it. Like I said, it may not, but I just believe here's an opportunity for it to be. So this time next year in 2025, will I sit here and say, hey, I was wrong? It's the same old, same old. Or will I sit here and say, you know what? I see what I said at the end of 24. I see it played out. It played out in 2025.
Here's low. Not until there is such a great cry of pain and hurt that the majority suffers will things change. Not until if there is such a great cry of pain and hurt that the majority suffers, will things change. And the only thing I'm going to do is just pick on that word majority. I'm going to say whiteness, the white people, because they are moving away from the majority. So we can talk about the people that have power in this country. So I just wanted to just kind of tackle that word, but not until they suffer, because you said this earlier that people have to feel it for themselves. If they feel it for themselves, then it'll make a difference. So not until white folks, not until the system of whiteness, not until the system of white inhumanity feels the rise of the people threatening them in a real way, will things change.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's going to happen coming this year, coming in 2025. And I believe it's going to happen because, whiteness chose Donald Trump. They said, that's what we want. Majority of white people said, that's what we want. But that's the lie that we've been talking about. Because the lie is that I'm going to make America great for you. But in reality, what's going to happen is they're going to wake up and they're going to see the nightmare that so many other people are suffering from. They're going to see the nightmare. You said when the pain is going to hit them, because it's going to be like, oh, what is this? And it's going to hit them that going back to the healthcare. People were like, oh, this has been happening to me for so long. And now I see somebody doing something about it. However that way plays out, I'm seeing somebody do something about it. Maybe it's time that I get with the program and find out it's not about black, it's not about white, it's not about, it's about the powers that be oppressing those who are less fortunate, those who are poor, those who don't have. It's them oppressing us. And in reality, we're in the same boat as everybody else that's being oppressed.
Well, I'm glad that you are hopeful for this change, but I'm not going to be hopeful for it until I see people begin to weaponize ourselves on every level. And what I mean by that is we have got to get ready for, if we're going to affect change and if we're going to indeed rise up in an inclusive way, the way that you are suggesting, then we've got to be ready for the backlash of whiteness. We've got to be ready for the backlash of the system of white inhumanity, because when they feel the pain that Lo mentioned, when they think that they are being threatened, then they are going to destroy whatever it is that they think is threatening them. So you look at President Obama. You think about how we galvanized around that and what happened to Black people. Black people, they came for us because they came in the way that they came for Black people during that moment. We didn't have a response. We weren't ready to respond to defend all that we had done in that moment to get him elected that first time. When you think about the Black Lives Matter movement, we came together in a way they had never seen before. And then they came for the movement, and we were not able to respond because we were not weaponized. And then when you think about what happened with George Floyd, all over the world, people were responding. Where is that energy? We're not feeling that energy now because the system of whiteness rose up, and they were like, oh, we got to calm this. We got to figure out how to do it. We got to put all these protesters in jail, all of these things, and we're not weaponized to respond when the backlash happens. So even if you say that there are people that are going to be moving in the right direction, there are people that are going to be advocating, there are people that are going to be activated, what happens when whiteness turns around and says, whoa, 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 and they come for us full force? What weapons are we going to use to fight that? And I'm not talking about guns, even though I do think guns are part of the process. I'm not just talking about guns. What structures do we have? What strategies do we have? What tactics are we using to be ready to respond? I don't see how the change is going to happen without that, and I don't see that in place anywhere.
Yeah, and I will agree with you on that, because you have to be ready. You have to be ready to defend. You have to be ready for it, and it goes back to when you look at January 6th of 2020, when the Capitol was attacked. That was that backlash. And I think so many people learn from that, okay, we know it's going to be a backlash. So yes, this is what we have to put in place. But also we have to be ready to deal with the backlash. We have to be ready to stand up against the backlash. We have to be ready to confront the backlash. And I think one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest things that is going to determine how everything plays out is, are people going to be willing to confront? Are people going to be willing to confront the issues? Are people going to be willing to confront the injustice, the way money is being spent, the way money is not being poured out or given to those who need it the most, the help that is needed? Are people going to be able to stand up and confront? And that's what I like about what's going on with Starbucks workers, with Amazon workers. They're willing to confront. They're willing to say, you know what, I'm gonna put my job on the line. I'm willing to put my body on the line. I'm willing to put my voice on the line to change this. And I believe that it's gonna keep going, not just in the arena of work, the workplace, but in the arena of society, because people are going to start standing up. That's just me. I just believe that based on what I've seen in this year, based on some things I've seen in this year. Now, like I said, it may not happen. But I believe that I think you're moving in the right direction for it to happen.
So here's what Lo says: the application of knowledge, wisdom is the key. The application of knowledge or wisdom is the key. And I want to jump on that and say, I want to say it may be one of the keys, but you got to apply the knowledge. But I want to know where you're getting your knowledge from, because remember, we're talking about a world that's filled with lies, and some people are not able to discern the truth from a lie, which is why they keep following the lie. So where I think that if we're going to affect change, you got to be careful where you get your knowledge from. You got to be careful what you believe. You got to know why you got to do some work. You got to do some work. You got to do some thinking. You got to do some centering. You got to just stop for a moment and make sure that you've got the right information, and then you can apply it effectively.
And you said something that's so important. People are now moving towards this thing called AI. And to me, artificial intelligence, in other words, it's made up, it's artificial, it's not real. But it has now become a part of society. And whoever controls the artificial intelligence, going back to what you said about knowledge, well, where you getting your knowledge from, where you getting your information from. If you're getting your information from an artificial source, that means, to me, you're going to have an artificial thinking. You're not going to have a real thinking because somebody else is making it up for you. So I think it's a time that we have to separate ourselves from so much of this AI and have the conversations with people, to have the conversations with ourselves, but to put it in a real. I know we love to get our information from, social media. We love to get our information from all these search engines. We love to get our information from there because it's simple, it's easy. I was amazed. Well, I don't say I was amazed, but it just blew me away in a certain way that now, if you are in a master's class, or you're trying to get your master's, or you're trying to get your PhD, or even you're trying to do a thesis or a dissertation or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is in college, you have a program now that will write it for you. That you're not looking up anything, you're not searching anything, you dependent on an artificial generated program to create this for you. So where is your knowledge in that? Where is your learning in that? And so I think at the top end, that's going to be something else that is going to be very impactful in the coming year. Is how is AI going to become this dominant force in our society? Hey, we almost out of time. So
just let me say this from Low. This just dropped. Remember the 6888th Postal Battalion of Women, I8N, in the Army. Remember the 6888th Postal Battalion of Women in the Army. Have a good one. And I don't know I think he's referring to, and it's a documentary now, I think it's on Netflix. It's called 6 and 3/8 or something like that. It's a black women. These are black women that were in the Postal Battalion, and I think that's what he's referring to.
Oh, okay. Any last comments for the end of the year?
If we are going to live in a world that is more just and more equitable, more inclusive and more peaceful, we are going to have to learn how to live and love differently.
Okay. Hey, enjoy the rest of your day. I will not be on the air until January 2nd. So have a great new year. Be safe, be careful, stay woke. All right.